and welcome to the featured discussion for 2nd August 2021. My name is Harsh Singh and this discussion is about domestic firms and free trade agreements. Now, in context of India and EU trying to have a free trade agreement, we will understand what is a free trade agreement, what are the impacts of free trade agreement on internal trade in India, on internal manufacturing of India, impacts, are there positive or negative impacts, so positive or negative impacts, and what is the way forward in case there are some repercussions, in case there are some issues. So here, this is an important article related to economy. So first of all, we will understand free trade agreements. Now, World Trade Organization, right, it tries to ensure that countries around the world indulge in trade, right? So there is not only domestic manufacturing and selling, the international manufacturing and selling also must happen, right? So India manufactures, sells to USA, European Union manufacturers, sells to India. So this kind of interaction is promoted by WTO. However, if international global networking cannot happen, regional networkings can also happen. So this is how few countries, two countries, few countries, or several countries can indulge into these kind of agreements where they will reduce the taxation on imported products. They will ensure that non-tariff barriers are also reduced. So what are non-tariff barriers? For example, European Union says that we will not import those kind of products which have utilized female exploitation or which have utilized child labor, right? So if these kinds of products they don't want to import, this is called as non-tariff barriers. So there is no tariff, there is no issue of tariff, but there is a barrier, right? So these kind of barriers will be eliminated through free trade agreements. See, the international trade of goods and then services and then utilization of persons, right? Free movement of persons. This is what are the various components of various free trade agreements, right? So India has had many free trade agreements with many partners, right? This is what it says. The South Asia free trade agreement. Then we have one with ASEAN countries, Korea, Japan, etc. So we have got many 50s of trade agreements, but have they actually benefited India? The article says that it has benefited India only in terms of those countries which are small in size, where there is supply constraint. But in terms of major partners, India has actually had deficit. So we are exporting less, we are importing more from the major partners. This is the situation. And you can see this very well in the map, in this diagram here, Japan. So our trade deficit has only increased with time. This is 2009 and this is 2018, trade deficit. So exporting less and importing more, right? So where is the trade? We are utilizing their products. We are not sending our products. So South Korea again increased, Malaysia increased, Singapore again, earlier we used to export and now we are importing even further, ASEAN, right? So what is the issue with this? What is the issue? This is what we will discuss in this article. Now, impact of free trade agreement, first of all, is that India has found export offerings, new offerings and new markets as well. So new products and new market, but we have not been able to capitalize by increasing the proportion in export and import, right? So the deficit is only increasing with several kind of countries, right? So firstly, now since India has many such agreements with our neighbors itself, right? So for example, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, now these are also in view of the Indian subcontinent, they also have that strength which India has. For example, textile sector, for example, goods, several goods sectors. So now these kind of products, if these countries are also exporting and they are exporting cheaper product, they're competing with India, right? So India's domestic MSME sector, which is also contributing to export, almost 40% of export, it is what it is contributing. We have discussed in several feature articles, right? So Bangladesh competing, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and they have cheaper labor, they have cheaper output production. So this is what is one of the impact to domestic manufacturing. Then labor intensive sectors. Now all these sectors are labor intensive and these countries, our neighbors themselves, are better than us in these kind of production. So then labor intensive industry also suffers, employment also suffers here. In fact, India, because India has a free trade agreement with Bangladesh, India itself imports textile from Bangladesh. So what will happen to our textile manufacturers? This is another issue here. White good industry. Now, white good industry is those electronic industry where big goods, for example, you see fridge in white color. So these kind of white good industries, this is what is called as white good. Now, if India is not a superpower here in export of these things, China is the one. So China is exporting to these countries also and India as well. In fact, one major issue is India has a trade pact with Bangladesh, right? So India will reduce the percentage, the tariff on Bangladesh products, right? So China, what it is doing, China has a pact with Bangladesh. This is an example. So China will give its products to Bangladesh at lesser rates, and Bangladesh somehow illegally trades it with India. So these Chinese products are coming to India via a third route. India doesn't have a trade pact with China, but they are still coming to India. So India is also facing the threat here, right? Duty disadvantage. Now in the pact, whenever agreement happens, so if India has an agreement with the ASEAN, right, Southeast Asia, so here several countries have trade pact with India. Suppose India will import at a particular rate, India will export at a particular rate. If this being Vietnam being a part of ASEAN, Vietnam export to Cambodia, to Malaysia, to Indonesia will be at different rates. This will be at lesser economical rate, right? Because this is already a part of a economic group, ASEAN. So if India has a pact with Vietnam, India's export to Vietnam will still be costlier. Why? Because these countries will be exporting products to Vietnam at cheaper rates. So the point being, example, plastics. If India is exporting plastic to Vietnam, which is in need of plastic, India's plastic will be more expensive than Cambodia, Malaysia and Indonesia plastic to Vietnam, right? So India does not get that advantage here as well. So these are the various issues. So here is the example of Vietnam, right? You can read through it. So why is the issue here, right? First of all, we have not utilized the FTAs properly, right? We have not utilized, in fact, we have not even conducted the proper surveys, which FTA will help India and which FTA will not help India. So this is one, right? Circumvention of FTAs. This is where I discuss the Chinese products which are getting diverted to India through some round trip mechanism, right? So then this is how India suffers. Non-tariff barriers. So European Union has placed barriers. For example, if you exploit your laborers, right? If you have child labor. So these are the kind of issues. 0 for 0 agreement, right? So these are the kind of agreements we need, right? Where there is a complete supply chain, there is a complete ecosystem. We export and we import. There will be 0 for 0 tariff for all the products. Now this is what close supply chain Japan has. Some countries have, right? But India doesn't have. So this is one of the requirements. Spaghetti ball effect. If we have too many trade agreements, if we have too many crisscrosses, it again reduces where we have to trade, reduces the focus. So this is another issue. Infrastructure, these are the regular bottlenecks that we talk of, right? So these are some particular issues regarding trade. Now, some more example of it is, now since African countries, some of the African countries, we trade very much with them, Nigeria or South Africa, but we don't have agreement with them. So this is what is required right now, to have the focus on those countries which are less in focus and yet important for India's external trade, right? So this is what is important. Atmanirbhar Bharat, we need to have these kind of production linked incentive programs. This is what India is doing right now. So these are the solutions to this kind of problem, right? Now, we should also speak to the stakeholders whether free trade agreement will impact India's production or not. So this is another solution here. Strengthening rules of origin. This is where the Chinese product can be reduced in India. How? If we know from where the product is getting originated, then we will put adequate tax. If there is Chinese product and there is value addition happening in Bangladesh and it is getting sold to India later, right? Then we will understand the country of origin. If the country of origin is not Bangladesh, it is China, and there is more value addition happening, we will tax these products. So this is the solution for this kind of challenge here, right? In this article, we understood what are the problems India has in the FTAs, right? How it impacts domestic manufacturing and what are the solutions. And this article does have very good technical terms for an answer, right? So do note them down. And after that, you can actually attend this the question at the end. Discuss the impact of FTAs on India's domestic firms and the reasons of this impact. What are the steps needed to make the FTAs work in India's favor, right? So solution also has to be presented along with this question, right? So thank you for watching this featured discussion. Thank you.